When was the last time you talked to your neighbors about what to do in a disaster? A disaster like the station fire, for example, back in 2009. If you can't remember or you haven't done it at all, well, it is high time to listen up here.
The LA County Health Department has this new disaster readiness campaign, and it urges neighborhoods to work together. Dr. Alonzo Plough from the County Health Department is here to explain this, how it works, and what we should be doing to get ready, right?
Right, thank you. Well, Connect, Prepare, Respond is our approach to really trying to strengthen preparedness in LA County. I think people know from what has happened here with the Northwood fire, with wildfires, mudslides, and certainly with the earthquake that happened in Japan, the tornado in Joplin, Missouri. We've learned that the first line of response in an emergency are your neighbors. They actually become the first responders. So we're really emphasizing that we connect with our neighbors, get to know them, get to know who's vulnerable, so that you can plan together at a neighborhood and family level so you're prepared to respond when disaster strikes.
It's kind of a new approach to things here. We always encourage people to get your earthquake kit and kind of just take care of your family, but we're kind of opening this up. It makes sense.
It makes sense. We found that it's very protective in areas, particularly in Japan, where you have strong neighborhoods. They provided the first line of support long before first responders can get there. Because when you think about it, many of those first responders are with their families, and the disaster may make it difficult for them to get to their station and respond. So neighbors who know who's vulnerable in their community are really a source of life-saving support in a disaster. We still want people to have a kit. We still want people to make plans at the family level. But what we want to add to this, the awareness that it's not just me, it's a we that helps us survive in disaster.
When you talk about people who are especially vulnerable, you're talking about perhaps people with babies, people with special medical concerns, people who live alone, elderly people, things like that?
Elderly who live alone, people with very young children. Some individuals are oxygen dependent, maybe even on home dialysis. So those are you really want to have an inventory of your neighbors. You want to know who might need a little extra help. And very simple things you can do in neighborhood planning. You can have a placard that you put in your window, need help, don't need help, that helps you go around the neighborhood and realize who might need some good help.
So in the Connect, Prepare, and Respond, is that kind of in the Connect you were talking about there?
I'm talking about in the Connect, know your neighbor, develop those neighborhood plans. Those plans can involve things just like neighborhood meetings, where you get together, introduce each other, develop a phone tree, maybe have share Twitter messages. All of those are ways that you can get to know your neighbors so you know who might need a little help and you can help each other in the case of a disaster.
I would imagine it would be a good idea to know about the hours that people traditionally work and when they're home and things like that, because you don't want to spend your time searching, if need be, at a house when they might be at work.
Exactly, and you might want to know the special skills they have. You might have a neighbor who's a nurse. You might have a neighbor who's an electrician or a plumber, help you turn off your water or turn off your power if needed. So knowing the capacities and assets in your neighborhood are really important too.
And then in the second part of this, the prepare phase, you talk about developing a method of communication for all the residents, maybe even a map with planned evacuation routes for everybody.
Exactly. The neighborhood mapping, knowing where the good evacuation routes are. If your neighborhood is in a mudslide, you might want to map out in advance what alternative routes that you can take, where you might gather. All of those are neighborhood tools that you can put in your neighborhood plan. And on our website, preparetorespond.org, that's the number 2, preparetorespond.org, we have detailed information about prepared strategies, connect strategies, and respond strategies.
We're showing some video right now of this station fire. This was just about 2 years ago. And boy, when these things happen, we know here in Southern California, they happen quickly. There's no time when there's an emergency to start planning then. It needs to be done now.
It needs to be done now. You need to actually drill those plans. Once you've worked with your neighbors and your family to have a plan, you need to exercise them like we do at First Responders. We exercise our earthquake plans. You need to talk with your children, again, at least a couple of times a year about what you would do in an earthquake and what number do you call. Often it's good to have a relative who lives outside the city so that you can call that relative to check in that you're safe. One of the major things that kids need to know and parents need to know is that all schools have very good disaster plans, and these kids will stay in place at those schools, and that's the safest thing to do because going outside to get your child might put you at more hazard in an earthquake or another disaster situation. So very important to know your workplace disaster plans, school disaster plans, your neighborhood plans, and your home plans.
It seems like just getting together and making the initial contact is the most important thing here. And it seems like the number of things you could do is just limitless. I mean, there may be special talent that you have as my neighbor, or special job that I have that could make me valuable to the whole neighborhood.
It is. You know your neighborhood assets, getting to know people, getting to, again, keep an eye out for those who need a little bit of help, those are vulnerable. I mean, the evidence just shows that saves lives. And you will be there for your neighbor, and they will be there for you, often long before a formal responder gets to your neighborhood. Because you know 911 and our traditional response systems can get jammed up. And in spite of great efforts by our first responders, neighbors are going to be your first response in a disaster.
Sounds like a great idea. Neighbors helping neighbors. For more information about the LA County Department of Health Disaster Readiness Campaign, just go to our website. We've got all the information right there. It's kcal9.com. You can click Seen on TV.